Thank you for being here today. This is a very, very exciting day for our university. As you'll find out during the course of these presentations, this is something that folks have been working on for quite a while. As in a while, I mean many, many years. Just seeing the excitement on the faces of my colleagues who have been working on this is just really exhilarating. We're here today to talk about the environment, talk about climate, and in fact, talk about the land that we're occupying here. So just before we get started, we'd like to begin by acknowledging with a land acknowledgement.
The University of Nevada, Las Vegas wishes to acknowledge and honor the indigenous communities of this region and recognize that the university is situated on the traditional homelands of the Nuwuvi Southern Paiute people. We offer gratitude for the land itself, for those who have been stewarding it for generations, and for the opportunity to study, learn, work, and be in community with this land. We encourage everyone in the UNLV community to engage in continued learning about the indigenous peoples who work and live on this land since time immemorial, including the Las Vegas Paiute tribe and the Mawapa Band of Paiutes, and about the historical and present realities of colonialism. As one of the most diverse universities in the United States, UNLV believes it is important to recognize and appreciate the use of Southern Paiute land as part of its mission to be a welcoming and inclusive place for working and learning.
So this is, we've just played the land acknowledgement. I would like to ask those of us participating here to consider the fact that we have a very active Native American Students Association, so please take some time to patronize their events and support them in any way that you can. This is the run of the show for this afternoon's presentation. We will be graced by the presence of our leadership here. And we'll have speakers from leadership. We'll go through the background of how we arrived at where we are today. Then we'll discuss what this Rebel CAP process is all about. We'll have some next steps and closing remarks, following which there will be a Q&A panel consisting of members of the UNLV Sustainability Task Force members. And then we'll have some activities that will be described to you as we get towards the end. But first of all, I have the pleasure and distinct honor of introducing someone who needs no introduction, our president, Dr. Keith E. Whitfield.
Well, I guess I'm obligated now. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. I like it. You guys learn. That's good. Shows the sharp people at UNLV. It really is good to be here with you. I'm so pleased to be here for the kickoff of UNLV's comprehensive climate action plan. I notice we're going to do what we always do, which is to make acronyms, so we're going to say CAP from here on out. So just know it's the Climate Action Plan. I want to make sure, because I don't know if they're on to have something to say about them, but out of the leadership of the university, Constance Brooks, VP for Government and Community Relations is here. Wave to the crowd. And you're going to hear from Jean Vach. I was going to say shortly, but I'm going to keep going on. So Jean Vach, our CFO. Provost Chris Heavey and Kyle Kalberg. And I do see that there are others out there. I don't want to go on and on and on because I'm going to go on and on and on. And in part just because this is something that I think is very important for our university. I will share with you it's very important to me. Some of you all know I'm a car guy. I have a couple, three old cars, but my daily driver is an electric car. And I didn't do it just because it was cool and technology and all that kind of stuff. I really thought, this is probably going to haunt me, but I'm going to say it anyway. I thought I'd like balance it out. I've got these old cars that must pollute. I don't drive them very far, but I've got to make a positive contribution. And so I wanted to get an electric car. So this is an issue to me that's very, very important. I think for our university in general, it's very, very important. I think together we're going to be able to reduce our emissions and make our campus more sustainable. The stakes have never been higher. I was actually asking one of our colleagues, I won't point her out, but she's going to be famous after tomorrow. Are people getting better about talking about climate change? And she said, well, kinda. At least it's not as much negative. There's not as much pushback. Now, UNLV has never been afraid of pushback. We don't really care. We're going to do what we think is right. And this is the right thing to do. Creating a plan which will encompass academic courses, research, campus operations, and if you would, join me in giving a hand to everyone here who's from campus operations. I'm not going to get too far off the script, but one of my moments that I remember is when I first got here in August of 2020, and I came on campus, and 30,000 students, actually this year 31. I was like, oh my gosh, first day of classes, I'm going to go say hi to a bunch of students. Were you here in August of 2020? There weren't no students. But who I did see was the folks doing landscaping. And I know they must have just thought I was some crazy nut. I went up and introduced them. I said, hi, I'm Keith. They're like, yeah, okay, I'm working here. And one of them then recognized me and said, this is the president. And the guy said, yeah, whatever. I still got to do my work. So what you all do has been part of what we have been doing. We have been working on ways in which UNLV can be sustainability minded. We've worked hard for years to be able to try to reduce our carbon footprint and create a more sustainable campus. But the Rebel RECAP is going to build on that foundation and give us a clear strategic roadmap. And I got told the other day that I tell witticisms. They're my crazy ways of trying to remember things. What I always think of is that you typically don't plan to fail, you fail to plan. Strategic plans are critically important. They will hold all of us accountable for the direction which we want to try to take to make our campus a more sustainable place. My challenge to you all is to make sure that you get involved. That seems to be, the guys who write my stuff, they can't say that in everything, get involved. It is important to get involved. We're a university community, we're back from the pandemic, we can get involved so much more easily, and we need to do it around this initiative in particular. You can do it by completing surveys, joining work groups. There's lots of things that you're going to be able to do that you're going to see both in terms of what the group does in developing the strategic plan and what the strategic plan suggests that we do following that. An important aspect of the plan is going to be for us to make sure that we're inclusive and follow DEI principles in mind, and that the work that we do really works well for everybody, and that's only going to happen if we participate. I do want to take this quick second, because I think in the space of DEI, where it's being talked about in our country, I think it's sometimes being misunderstood. DEI doesn't mean just those minoritized groups. DEI is everybody. Everybody is a part of a diverse fabric, not a couple of groups over here and then versus this group. It's everybody. That means all hands, actually, Provost had us have an all hands meeting yesterday. That needs to be our thought for everything, of that it's all of us. It's all of us as a university community coming together to be able to achieve great things. And we're going to need your feedback. As this strategic plan gets made, there's going to be points in time that we need others' perspectives, and that's very important. In fact, you're going to be able to start now or today. Make sure that you stick around. I do apologize. I'm going to have to run to something, but you need to stick around during and after the presentation and the panel and make sure that you share your perspectives. And there's going to be an engagement activity that's going to allow you to do that. But do something for me if you would. Group participation. Take your right hand and do this if you would. If you don't do it, I'm gonna pick on you. Okay, that means that everybody knows how to raise their hand so that if they've got a question or a comment that you can do it. Because everybody did it. I saw somebody put their hand down real quick, but everybody can do it. You can participate, and your participation matters. Before I turn it over, I want to make sure that I give a few thanks, a few shout-outs. One to our student body. It is funny. Student bodies really do contribute to the lifeblood of a university, not just to get their degree, but actually encouraging us, supporting us, holding us accountable for making sure we do things that are important. And so they were particularly important with this initiative. Also to the Rebel CAP core team, which includes Musa, Tyra Pike, Andy Davis, and I will point out that Zachary Billett chased me down when I first met him. He honestly chased me down. I was running from one meeting to another, and when he got in my ear and he kept saying, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this, he had me completely convinced by the time we made it down the stairs. And this is one of our outstanding superstar students. This is an example of what we're going to be able to do from leadership like yours, so thank you very much. You usually don't tell people thank you for bugging the crap out of you, but he bugged the crap out of me. It's the right thing to do. Also want to thank the firm of Brailsford and Dunleavy for partnering with us on this very important journey. I also want to thank Gene Vogt, Kyle Kalberg, CSUN, and the Sustainability Task Force members. So more important, or as important as all of those people, is actually each one of you all for being here. Thank you for taking the time out of your day to do this. Don't just let it end with this, though. You've got to stay committed. You've got to stay participating. I'm going to do my best. When there's a survey, we're not going to put your names by it, but don't worry. I'm going to be one of those data points. We've got to make sure that we get people's perspective on how we design a strategic plan going forward. So with that, I have great belief and great faith that it's going to be very innovative. I have tried to make that part of my leadership here, is that we're not going to do things the way we've always done them. Because as we see, we're hurting the very place that we live. We're hurting the earth by doing it. We've got to start doing things better. It's going to start here at UNLV, and it's definitely going to start with this plan. So now what I'd like to do is to welcome Gene Vogt up to say a few words. Thank you.
All right, well, good afternoon. Okay, great, thanks. The great opening words from our president. Thank you so much, and looking forward to the rest of this afternoon. I first want to acknowledge a little bit more about Musa. He joined us just over 2 years ago. It was August 1, 2021, and one of the things that really stood out when we were doing that recruitment was his passion for and commitment to sustainability and climate action planning. So, and we've had that interest sporadically throughout the university. We've had a lot of efforts that have started and sustained at a lower level, and then other things that have started and not gotten really off the ground. We needed somebody to really help push it forward with our student leadership and with Musa and with others. Tara's been with this for almost 20 years, 23? 30 years. Okay, so we've always had great champions, and now we're finally bringing this to fruition. I'd really like to also thank everyone who's here with facilities management, planning, construction. Your areas in particular have so much input into our sustainability efforts. Our everyday operations offer the greatest opportunities for us to make impactful change toward a sustainable future. And it's also our chance to lead by example, to demonstrate that we are willing and able to take action. So everything we do can have an impact, including how we commute to campus, how we build and construct our buildings to take advantage of being more effective in design, how we maintain them, heat them, cool them, how we procure which supplies and services we procure and how we deploy them, what we throw away, what can be reused, the types of plants and landscaping that we use throughout our beautiful campus. And I think you're going to hear more about that. But, you know, for example, we began a turf replacement and water reduction effort back in the 80s. And to date, we've converted more than 1 million square feet of grass turf to smart desert landscaping. We've got the LEED certified and sustainable building practices, and we have 5 certified buildings on our campus. The advanced engineering building is going to be completed at the end of this year, and that will be LEED silver equivalent when it's completed. So other sustainable efforts include solar energy efforts. There's a big array that not many people know about, but we've got a pretty substantial array that I think generates the equivalent, last I heard, was about 100, the electrical needs of 100 homes. So we've got a pretty good array, but it's pretty hidden on campus. We have a number of electrical vehicle charging stations, and we're adding more each time we build or update a parking lot or a parking garage. So those are increasing. We've got alternative transportation opportunities. And as I said, we're incorporating green building practices into all of our planning and construction and design standards. We've got a sustainable purchasing program. We have a very significant recycling and effort and our surplus efforts. If you haven't been over to our surplus warehouse, you got to check it out. It's over near the 99-cent store. So these impressive achievements really are just the beginning. The Rebel CAP program will continue to build upon these efforts and give us reachable goals for a much more climate resilient future for our future generations. So thanks again, Musa, for taking the effort, as well as everyone who's on this leadership team and council, and thanks students for helping us move this forward and increase it in the priorities. So turn it back over to Musa, and I hope you have a good afternoon of discussions and activities here.
Thank you so much, Jean. Appreciate your kind words. I'm going to go off script a little bit because the president recognized Zachary, and I just want to tell you all in this room that there's a very proud person in the room that's so proud of Zachary, his mother. Welcome. Thank you for coming, ma'am. So in case you didn't know, we're going to QR code you to death this afternoon. So I hope you have enough charge on your phones. But we're really interested in knowing who's in the room. So would you please scan this QR code? And I believe folks online have the same opportunity. And as one-question surveys go, that should be actually 2 questions, but I think we're about there. Thank you. Wow. Go students. Oh, admin faculty are catching up. This is a race to the top. Students aren't backing down. Okay. Good. Thank you for sharing your feedback to us on that. Next question is, why are you interested in this event? We assume you're interested, that's why you're here. Although someone in facilities said, I was told to be here. Thank you for being here. Give it Good. So as we can see, this is very important to people. Sustainability clearly is the main driver. It's very important to us. It's important to our planet. Some of the questions that we often get is, where do we think we're going to land? And I used to tell a joke that, I came here from Brown, where we had 2040 as a target, but India has 2070, so we might land somewhere between Brown and India. So a little bit of a background and where we stand. And Tara was introduced earlier today. She made a confession to me yesterday. She said, one of the reasons I haven't left UNLV all these years, for 30 plus years, is because I don't like to dress up. So I don't like going to interviews. I'm not trying to, part ways with Tara, but if you find out about any jobs that don't require dressing up, please don't tell her. So a little story in introducing Tara. First of all, 30 years ago, I rolled up in here. It sounds like a movie, right? 30 years ago, I arrived at Boston's Logan Airport from Nigeria, where I grew up. So what you're getting, just like many Boston jokes, right? This starts at a bar. So imagine that a Boston accent and a Nigerian accent met at a bar and then had a baby. This is what you get, this accent here. That same year, 1991, in August when I arrived, Tara had already begun working on sustainability efforts. That's how long it's been, and that's how dedicated an individual she is. She's been on radio. She's a rock star. She might as well be the mayor of Las Vegas, but she is that popular. And we're really, really happy to have her in our midst serving this university. So without further ado, I'm introducing Tara Pike, our sustainability coordinator and recycling manager.
I actually couldn't be the mayor of Las Vegas. I'd have to dress up, and that's not going to happen. You get nice jeans. But yeah, thank you. I'm really happy to be here. I, of course, love UNLV. It's another reason I've never left, and I do want to see UNLV be more sustainable. I'm proud of UNLV, and every step we take to become more sustainable, I get more and more proud. It's kind of like having a child and watching them grow up. I always talk about how the Rebel Recycling Program is my firstborn. And it's really hard to marry her off. So I'm gonna do it. I'm not gonna do it right now. So yeah, I am very proud to be here, and I'm really happy to foster and see more people becoming champions of sustainability at UNLV, because for a long time the conversation would be, oh yeah, we have sustainability, Tara's doing it, and that's just not the way it needs to be. It needs to be a collective. It needs to be all of us. We should all pick a part of it and champion that part. I will talk about waste all the time. I love to be called the recycling woman who loves to talk trash, but I can't be the only one. I need everybody. So I'm really, really happy about this process, and I'm really looking forward to having everyone interact and help and provide ideas and have the new generation on board. It's so amazing. And there have been many of Zach's and Andy's through the years. I wasn't the first, I'm never gonna be the last, and that's what's important. So where's my slide? You got my slide? Oh, I do it? Oh, great. I love myself doing it. Okay, so sorry about that. Dr. Vach, is that right? I don't know. But she went through a lot of this, and that was wonderful. In terms of the electricity, she mentioned that's the equivalent of 116 homes, and that is pretty amazing stat, but I don't know if it really shows the exact kind of view that you need. So we have 1.4 megawatts of generating capacity at UNLV, with our biggest system being on top of the MPE, which is 350 kilowatts. It's pretty impressive if you look at some aerial views of UNLV. And this number is basically our generation. It's megawatt hours of generation between 2014 and 2022. However, we do have the capacity for you to look on our website and see the generation in real time. So if you haven't done that, it's pretty cool. And to say how much energy carbon that is, it's 1,244 metric tons of carbon. So I need you to picture 249 hot air balloons. So that's what it is. And this is important step for us, but we gotta cover more roofs, get more power. I'd love to see solar on top of shaded walkways. Let's shade the campus. So, and that goes along with the 4,000 trees on campus, right? They're very important for shading the campus, reducing the heat island effect, and keeping our people out of the sun. The 5 registered or certified LEED buildings, Dr. Vaughn talked about that, and our gold one is GUA, and we are registered or certified silver one is SEB. And then we have the Solar Decathlon House, with Dr. James is very proud of. We won some awards with that one. And the other ones is the medical education building, which just got built, and that is registered silver, and then the hospitality is registered silver. We did convert 90% of the lights on campus to LEDs, so even if they look like fluorescent tubes behind the little cap, they're LEDs. And that's important because that actually reduces the heat being generated in the room. So it actually helps to also reduce our HVAC needs because those fluorescent tubes generate a lot of heat. And then we have a central plant, which is great because it's more efficient than single heating and cooling systems at the individual buildings. So I would love for you to look up the central plant on the website. And then automation, of course, helps a lot because everything's at our facility managers' fingertips to change. And of course, I left waste to last because that's my favorite thing to talk about. If you want to talk about that with me for hours, I will. But this is how much we recycled in 2022, and that is the equivalent of 7 blue whales, and I don't think that sounds really very impressive, so I looked up how many elephants it would be. So it's 211 medium elephants, and that also didn't seem super impressive to me. So it's 32,431 golden retrievers. So please picture that when you think about how much we recycled. And continue to recycle, but more importantly, don't make recycling or trash in the first place. Reduce and reuse and refuse. Thanks. So one thing we're very proud of is we are the first NT institution to start on our way to a climate action plan. All the NT institutions do have sustainability efforts, and we're proud of all of them. But we also want to be very proud of the fact that we're starting this. We want to be an inspiration to them as well, and we hope that we are going to be the first but not the last. We hope to inspire them to go along this process too. In terms of recycling, I started the recycling program as an undergrad in the 90s, and we were the first NT institution to have a recycling program, yay. And I think we were amongst the first to have solar installation. So we started in 2013 with that. We do, however, and a negative, because I always like to keep it real, is we are the 4th lowest in our 14 peer institutions in our STARS score. So STARS is the Sustainability Tracking and Rating System. It's through ASHE, which is the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. It is the premier tool for colleges and universities to assess how they're doing in sustainability. So we're talking about, they look at academics, they look at engagement, operations, and planning and administration. So how do we get our STAR score higher? We're silver. How do we get our STAR score higher? We do a climate action plan. So that's why we're doing this and where we stand. And I think this is a really important step. And we have to do this because I am not a fan of save the earth as a motto, because the earth is going to keep spinning around the sun even if we're not on it. It doesn't matter. It's not save the earth, it's save the earthlings and save the future of all of our students. So that's why we're doing this, for the future that they're going to inherit. So save the earthlings. And we need to walk the walk, which is really important. So it's our responsibility to do this. Like I said, save the earthlings, which include all of our children and grandchildren. And I'm very proud of Zach for doing the Senate Resolution 52365. I love that it's -365. It's because of students that we are here, honestly. And I want you all to know how much power you actually have when you demand something as the clients of this university. Usually and mostly, the administration is going to listen, especially the administration we have right now, which are just wonderful. So we have executive leadership support, and we're in alignment with top tier, I think, by doing this. It's very exciting, the process that we're starting here, and I'm really happy all of you are in the room and online to participate in the next activity and the next couple months and the next couple decades. So thank you. So I am going to pass it on, the torch on to the next generation, and bring Zach up here.
So I will admit I'm not nearly as cool as everyone's making it sound like I am. Maybe I'll come across cool, we'll see. So like Tara said, my name is Zach Billett. I sort of started this whole thing in student government, and yes, the 365 was intentional. We're at like bill 89, and I was like, there's no way I'm going to be 5290. It has to be 365 days a year that we're going to be sustainable. So this started in student government, and like President Whitfield said, I did chase him down the hallway because if I didn't get his support, I knew it was going to be a lot more difficult. So it was just one part of the planning stage to get sustainability onto campus. So the Rebel CAP will be sort of a living tool that we'll be able to utilize for decades to come, like Tara had mentioned. And it provides a strategic framework for how we're going to move forward in a variety of areas of sustainability. All these things that you see on the periphery of where you're sitting are all the areas that we're really going to be focusing on. Buildings, procurement, academics, energy, water, all those things that are really essential to not only our society, Las Vegas, but also just the broader community are all going to be central components to the Climate Action Plan. And the Rebel Climate Action Plan, like we've all said, is ultimately going to be building a future of resilience, reducing our risk to climate-related catastrophes, and hopefully attracting students and faculty members that work on unique sustainability projects that we haven't been able to attract because we don't have the foundational components to attract those people here. So hopefully by creating that sustainable culture, we create a place where students, faculty, staff, community members feel more welcomed, and it feels more hospitable to everyone. Ultimately, what this all forms down into is that we are even taking action too late at this point. And all of the international evidence and national evidence all points towards the same fact, that we're sort of spiraling towards this inevitable climate catastrophe if we don't change our actions. And part of that starts not only at the state level, which the state has sort of already obligated that by citizen vote, but also at the community level, and that includes the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And if we're inspiring the future generations of staff, faculty, and students to become stewards of the environment, that's less burden on state governments, on national governments, on international governments, and ultimately we can make the future a more hospitable place quicker. And that's ultimately the goal of not only the Climate Action Plan, but also just the goal of environmentalism broadly, is to get to that goal quicker and to create a world that's more friendly to everyone. So I will be passing it back off to Musa to give some more of the specifics for how our Climate Action Plan has been progressing, but I really appreciate all of you for being in attendance. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. Before I take this next section, Tara did deputize me to ask you to do something in keeping with sustainability, and that is when we get to the portion where you have refreshments, all of the plates and cups are compostable, and so there are a couple of green barrels outside on the patio, so please utilize them so that we're respecting the environment and making sure that we compost. So, no QR codes here, hint, hint, but we are an educational institution, so I feel it's incumbent upon us to at least educate you on the way out. If you never knew anything about emissions, by the way, y'all are full of hot air. No, it's true. Right? Carbon dioxide, greenhouse gases. So there are three types of emissions: Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. The ones that are under our control, you will see. So direct emissions contribute to Scope 1 emissions, and that is those that come from vehicles, owned generation. That is, if we owned a central power plant on our campus, for example, which we don't, that would be part of Scope 1 emissions. And there will be no quizzes for the students who are in the room, by the way, on this, except maybe for Dr. Davis's class, which will be at the end. Scope 2 emissions are indirect emissions, the ones that you purchase electricity, heating and cooling plants and things like that contribute to Scope 2 emissions. Scope 3 emissions are indirect emissions also, and they're some of the more difficult scopes of emissions to quantify, because you look at how we commute to work, how we commute to school. For the researchers, administrators, and academic professionals amongst us, the travel that they undertake in pursuit of their work, all of those contribute to what we call Scope 3 emissions. So when you add up all of those, that's how an institution like ours would say, okay, this is where we are today, and this is where we need to get to. So speaking of where we are today, it might look busy, but I'll simplify it. We have the years on the x-axis, 2020 through 2050. Remember my comment about between Brown and India. I think about that. So we as a university, all of our properties, over 100 buildings, 4 million square feet, 400 acres, about 30, almost 40,000 strong between students and staff, as of 2022, contribute about 91,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent to the atmosphere, coming from all of those three scopes of emissions. Now, you might be wondering, when you look at a graph like this and say, what happened in 2020? Any guesses? Sorry? The pandemic, thank you, right? A de-densified campus, lower emissions, although those of us in engineering, it's sort of a reverse situation, because when we received guidance from the CDC, actually ran counter to some of the energy efficiency practices. So we had to move more air through the buildings because we had this virus that was coming around. We didn't know what it did and how it affected people. So even for empty buildings, we circulated air. We went to higher efficiency filters, which then caused us to use more energy. So we did have that dip in 2020, but as you can see, the line that goes from about 2023 or 4 all the way down to 2040 is a sort of a simulation of where we think we might be in terms of our climate neutrality. So basically, as you walked in, there was a poster at the door, and where the data is pointing to, or looks like it will be now, is that by by 2037, so draw a line from 2037 up to the dotted line going downwards, and you'll see that that represents about 45,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent on the y-axis, and that's 50% reduction. So 50% reduction by 2030 and 100% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by 2040. That makes sense? Okay. So I'll give credit to Zach for one more thing here. So Zach said, you know what? Our anniversary, 100-year anniversary is 2057. How about we land at 100% by 2057? So guess what, Zach? That is the goal right now as we sit. So it'll be the Zach Billett 2057 100-year anniversary goal of being 100%. How's that sound? Awesome. And this is just another way of representing that data in non-graphical form. Spoiler alert, Brailsford and Dunleavy calls it a tree map. I don't see a tree, so I don't want to call it a tree map, although I think I just called it a tree map 3 times. But the far left represents purchased electricity. Those difficult sort of scope 3 emissions are in the middle, the orange and the gray. And then we've got on-campus stationary and electricity transmission and distribution losses, as well as solid waste. And now to the mystery guest, back to the mystery guest, I will introduce really the quarterback of this entire process, this tireless worker who works day and night and has been engaged with us from Brailsford and Dunleavy as our project lead, has been just absolutely super for us, and I'd like to introduce Jillian Buchholz.
Hey everyone, I'm Jillian. I'm the Sustainability Advisor at Brailsford and Dunleavy. I've had over 18 years of experience in the sustainability and higher education sector as someone like Tara working as a Sustainability Officer and also for the Association for the Advancement of Sustainability in Higher Education. I'm really happy to be here today, and I'm really happy to work on this project with such an exemplary team. I just want to talk a little bit about our process. Brailsford and Dunleavy is supporting UNLV, but we're also joined by affiliated engineers. They will be taking a deep dive into the technical aspects of this plan, and also Cascadia Consulting Group. Cascadia Consulting Group focuses specifically on diversity, equity, and inclusion in the process to make sure that we're really taking into consideration who's involved in the plan and that we are thinking about solutions that represent all, as the President had mentioned before. This is a high-level schedule. We'll be working on this plan through March. Right now we're in September, and we're sort of wrapping up a look at some initiatives and also starting to socialize those. So you will be involved in events like this, essentially, to help give us input about the different things that we're seeing in the plan, and there will be several opportunities to engage throughout this process as well. We have about a 4 or 5 step process that we typically go through in a climate action plan. It starts with data collection, qualitative and quantitative. We want to look at hard numbers and also guiding directives where you're already making decisions at UNLV. We're going to gather perspectives, the ideas assessment that many of you have been engaged in, over 400 responses so far, which I think is more than any university Brailsford and Dunleavy has ever worked with on a climate action plan, so that's impressive. It's a really great opportunity to share your perspective. We will establish baselines based on the quantitative and qualitative data that we do collect, and we'll work together with the UNLV team and all of you to establish solutions within the plan in a roadmap format. We want to make sure what's in the roadmap meets your goals. These goals will be realistic, they'll be achievable, financially viable, and specific to UNLV. It's very important that these plans can be implemented when they're complete and that they are achievable, and that's very important to us and the team as well. We're going to do a lot of modeling and scenario testing, so this will be a very data-driven process. Once we have some recommendations, we will socialize those for input and feedback, like in meetings like this, and then we'll organize the plan to be implemented once it's adopted. For example, we're not doing this in a vacuum. We are looking at what's happening locally, regionally, and globally as drivers. We know All in Clark County was just adopted, and that's something we're looking at closely to make sure that this plan is in alignment with other plans and strategic documents that the university makes decisions around. Here's another QR code for you, the ideas assessment. If you have not taken it, please do. This is an online tool that helps us gather perspectives on what you think should be in the Rebel CAP. It gives you an opportunity to share where you think UNLV is doing well and where you think it could improve. So we really hope that you participate in that as well. See some phones going up. And then I'm going to hand it over to Andy for next steps and closing remarks. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for everyone that came today. This is really the beginning of a quite exciting process. And, as my colleagues have mentioned before, we have a very, strict deadline of we want to have this out by March of next year. So you're going to be seeing a lot about us within the next couple months. You're going to be hearing more about the Climate Action Plan and definitely more ways that you can get involved. So as Jillian mentioned previously, we really need as many folks as possible to fill out our ideas assessment. Because we really want to have a comprehensive approach to how we approach this climate action plan, and we really want to make sure that everyone's voices are being heard and everyone is represented. I also represent several different student organizations on campus. I'm the treasurer for Student Sustainability Council, and I also run the UNLV Community Garden. So there are lots of ways for folks to be involved, even if you're not a student, if you're not staff or faculty from UNLV. Members of the general public still have a right to, dictate what's going on in this climate action plan, so we really want to hear from everyone, and there's many ways you can get involved. Here's a QR code that'll take you to a form if you're interested in participating in a working group. This is pretty specific to, I guess, anyone, but these working groups, as you'll see in our breakout session, each of our posters right there represent a different working group, and so, you can join any of these working groups with topics that you're most passionate about so that we can inform that in our climate action plan, because we're really getting into the bread and butter of it. This is just the start. So thank you again for everyone for coming, and we'll talk more.
We asked for some questions in advance when folks registered, and we have several of them. I'd like to invite up a panel of individuals from the Sustainability Task Force at UNLV to address some of those questions that were asked in advance. We'll spend about 15 minutes or so on Q&A, and then we'll take a break for refreshments, and then we'll have a gallery walk. The gallery walk will give you an opportunity to share your perspective on these different topic areas, as Andy had mentioned. So we do hope that you stick around. So if the panelists would like to come up. You can clap for them. Yeah, they should be able to. Thank you. And there might be a couple faces that were not introduced to you on the panel. And if you can introduce yourself to the room, and I can reiterate to the folks online if you'd like.
Involved in sustainability on campus for probably 10 years, and I did go to school with Tara, and I did have a thesis project with Tara, so we worked together for years.
That's Dr. Lisa Davis, everyone.
Since Lisa stood up, I guess I have to stand up too. Thanks, Lisa. My name is Christine Bergman. I'm a professor in the Hospitality College. My focus is on food science and nutrition. Like all of these folks, I've got a passion for making a difference in the world related to sustainability. And so I've created, modified some different courses in our college. We've spread sustainability throughout our curriculum, and I'm really excited to be a part of this Rebel CAP.
Thank you. And that's Dr. Bergman for everyone online. So our first question is directed at Dr. Davis and Dr. Bergman. Feel free to answer in whichever order you would like, and also other panelists are welcome to answer as well. The question is, I'm interested in what you envision our climate action to be in the broader Southern Nevada community as an anchor institution in this region. Las Vegas is one of the most severe urban heat island communities, and we all know about our shared water challenges. how can the CAP explicitly focus on community adaptation and leadership in addition to taking care of the steps we need to do internally to become a more responsive and responsible organization in this work?
Ooh, that's a really big, broad, wonderful question. I think we've had a tendency to look really inward during this initial Rebel CAP planning process. But Lisa and I have been talking about some ways for us to really start to get engaged with the community through this process. And so, Lisa, maybe you can talk a little bit about some of the things we've been discussing.
Well, we've been looking at partnerships because I think, as mentioned before, sustainability doesn't happen in a vacuum. So we have to engage with other stakeholders, people that are already working in the sustainability space, already created climate action plans, businesses, NGOs. So we have a lot of partners that we can work with. So we're hoping to look towards the future and engage a lot of those stakeholders with us as we make movement towards this plan.
Yeah, and maybe I can't remember whether this addresses this question or another one that we looked at, but these partnerships, if you think about it, there's a lot of groups working on sustainability across just our valley, but I don't see that there's a clearinghouse for what everybody is doing. And so we're thinking about proposing, as part of the Rebel CAP, that UNLV become the clearinghouse for the work that is going on. And so we can avoid redundancy, but we can also see the holes in our efforts that aren't taking place, and that UNLV can begin to recruit faculty to help in, to begin to educate students to address.
Excellent, thank you. And I do just want to let the folks in the Zoom room know if you have a question, you can submit it through the Q&A option in Zoom. Okay, Andy, we're going to move on to you. Tell us about how students can continue their involvement in the Rebel CAP process.
All right, so if you are a student, and I mentioned in my original presentation as well, the best thing that you can do is just to be involved. And the best way to do that, Student Sustainability Council, we're putting on a bunch of events this semester. We're trying to relaunch our organization. And that way, by attending meetings, we can also, just collaborate, share ideas about, the Rebel CAP together. And if you're even more interested and want to go the extra mile, we are looking for members to help populate our working groups. So that's really going to help us, write this climate action plan.
Excellent. And I don't know if anyone else wants to answer the question about how students can get involved.
Well, I mean, Andy kind of hit on all the important parts.
She's very comprehensive.
Yeah, but ultimately, I think that the biggest thing is to just remain engaged in building the cultural components of sustainability. So building conversations, having, whether it be just conversations in classing or in a group project in a class, I think it's really important to build the culture of sustainability on campus beyond some of the more formal programming and events that we have. So I would encourage you to do that.
I think, let me just build a little bit on what Zach is saying. I love the idea of us changing our culture. And changing that culture can be something as simple as what Tara did earlier when she said, let's not focus on saving the earth because the earth is going to be just fine. Mm-hmm. Let's focus on saving the earthlings. So if you take something as simple as that and have conversations with folks during your day, that can begin to change our culture, where every decision that we're making, we make that decision through the lens of sustainability. And so I love your idea on changing our culture.
Thank you. And Zach, you can keep the microphone, because the question here, I believe, should be directed at you, is how and when was the idea for the Rebel CAP created? I think that was touched on a little bit, but if you could give more detail.
Well, I talked about it briefly, so I'll sort of spare most of the remarks, but student government passed 52-365, which was the student government resolution that urged the university to create the climate action plan and also to conduct a STARS report. So it got passed through student government, but part of that process was also running President Whitfield down so that he would say yes because ultimately it was just a piece of paper until there was someone who said, I'm willing to take this on.
Excellent,
And
thank
that
you.
was November of, September of last year, question mark?
Okay.
Sure, we'll go with
Yeah.
that, fall.
Yeah, and we started working, I think, spring, question mark? Yeah.
Yes, just to add to what Zach said, that gave the process the momentum, the necessary momentum. Now, from a process standpoint, we see Dr. Kalberg here sitting in front. He is Mr. Top Tier, Dr. Top Tier 2.0, and everything related to top tier. And folks like him and his leadership, Gene Vox's leadership, in bringing us the Sustainability Task Force before the top tier infrastructure and shared governance work group to talk about what our intentions were and to receive their guidance really as to how to shepherd this through to the administration and ultimately to the cabinet and get buy-in there. That was a really critical piece of the effort, and it was an important effort for us to undertake because we learned very early on what all the starts and stops had been over the years and what prevented this effort from going forward in past attempts.
Thank you. And Musa, this next one for you. Can you talk about the time frame for implementation once the plan is completed and the plan for funding the plan?
Yes, so the plan is really just that. It's a plan and it's a roadmap, as previous speakers, the President and Gene Vogt, talked about. This will probably outlive most of our 10 years here, but it is going to be a solid plan that provides all the people who work on it going into the future with the templates, tools, plans, processes, and directives in order to implement the plan. So the timeline will end really at our terminal date of carbon neutrality, which right now is the Zach Billett 2057 plan. Right?
And I can add to that as well. Typically, climate action plans are for 5 years. It's usually about a 5-year plan, but it doesn't mean that the solutions and recommendations in that plan will all be completed within 5 years, but things change, and they change relatively quickly. So typically we recommend a 5-year plan with annual progress reports, followed up by your recap, I think we just named it, for the next version of your plan, because things will change, you'll achieve great things, you'll change your priorities and things like that as well. And I will say that right now, nationally, specifically with the infrastructure, the Inflation Reduction Act and the bipartisan infrastructure bill, infrastructure law, Bill and IRA is what we like to call them. There's a lot of funding out there from the government, and they're actually still figuring out the parameters around that. So it's a great time to act on these initiatives now because there's a lot of funding that wasn't available previously as well. It doesn't all have to come from your central budget. Tara, any questions online that we should address for the panel?
There is one. It's how is UNLV catering contributing to reducing food waste? And I'm answering it online.
Okay, so the how is UNLV addressing food waste? UNLV catering addressing food waste is being answered online. Great. Okay, so this next question I had earmarked for myself, but I'm realizing it's probably very appropriate for everyone on the panel, so I'm going to ask it to all of you. The question is, I noticed on the different strategies around the room, we have buildings and energy, green procurement and policies. I think we've got academics and research, waste management, water resource management, and back there is stewardship and climate justice. Of those, many seem measurable, but some seem less measurable. So can you talk about how sustainable transportation and increased knowledge of sustainability are being addressed? How will UNLV know it's making change and having impact in these areas?
So I'll start. There is a management guru by the name of Peter Drucker, to whom this quote is attributed, that if you can't measure it, you can't manage it. So I think where we need to start first is to do everything that we can to measure. These fine folks here from facilities management in the room work day to day on all kinds of pieces of equipment and assets that we have. In many cases, we may lack the opportunity to be able to measure how those pieces of equipment are functioning and how the buildings are functioning. So part of the effort in measurement will include things like metering and just dashboarding and ensuring that we're understanding how our systems operate. I'll pass it on.
I also would like to add that for our working groups, we do have working group leads, and those will be, populated by folks that do know the most about each subject. So that way, they'd be able to advise everything, and how to measure it. But, we have folks that, know what's going on with that.
Well, when we think about measurements in research, there's two types of research, qualitative and quantitative, right? So I think what this question seems to be saying is can everything be given a number? And not everything we're going to work on and propose to do can be given necessarily a number, but we can measure things in a qualitative sense. We can have focus groups with people to see how we're doing right now related to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then we implement programs, and then we have focus groups afterwards. So there are other ways of measuring things besides counting.
Great, thank you. Any questions online? Okay, we have a microphone in the middle of the room. I would like to open it up. We have a couple more minutes for the Q&A. Is there anyone that has a question they'd like to ask? There's a microphone in the center of the aisle here. You're welcome to go up and ask your question. We do ask that you ask a question and not make a very long statement that I'll have to interrupt with my exceptional facilitation skills.
We agree.
Thank you.
Test.
Perfect.
Hi, my name is Steve Pastorino. I'm a graduate school in the College of Education, studying higher education. My question is divestment from fossil fuel companies part of the long-term plan when it comes to considering how UNLV is investing our financial resources?
I'll start it.
Thank you.
Spoiler alert, I'm not going to have an answer for you because that's above my pay grade. But here's the thing. If I may ask you a follow-up question, by divestment, do you mean divesting from investing in companies or divesting from utilization of fossil fuels?
Divestment in terms of investment in fossil fuels companies from the university's portfolio.
Got it. Okay. So as I understand it, the endowment of the university is centrally held within NCHI. So we will follow the information and the data where it leads us, I think is what I'll be willing to say here. So we will study the issues, and if it turns out that we do have recommendations to make around divestment, we will make them. My experience with issues around divestment can be very, very thorny. When I was at Brown University, I served on a committee there that was advising the university president on divestiture. Now, Brown has a significant endowment, as you might know. I joke that we have 10 times, Brown has 10 times the endowment, but we have 3 times the number of students as Brown does. So it's an issue that needs to be talked about. It's an issue that needs to be looked at, and we will follow the facts where they may and make the recommendations as necessary.
I think I might just put a little caveat to that and include the word transparency. I mean, what we can through the Rebel CAP, when we come to make our recommendations, we can request that the amount that we are invested become transparent. Now, what can happen to that isn't going to be our choice, but I think we can at least ask for transparency.
And I'll also add that our recommendations are not fully baked at this point by any means. The Green Procurement and Policies Working Group will be chewing on questions like this, and if you are very passionate about that topic or any of the topics that the working groups will be involved in, discussing and coming up with recommendations for the plan for leadership to consider, please, fill out the survey to get involved. Let us know, share your ideas today, because really we're just embarking on this process of figuring out what are we going to do? We're putting a lot of initiatives on the table, and then we're starting to take things off. And we're starting to tailor those initiatives to make sure they make sense for UNLV as well. Maybe time for one more question from the audience? Yeah, come on up. Please introduce yourself and then ask your question.
Hello, my name is, can you hear me?
Oh.
Okay, hello? Oh,
Yep.
Yeah, I can hear.
Great, thank you.
My name is Annie. I'm a student here, and I work for the student newspaper as well as Brookings Mountain West. My question for you, as students, a lot of us commute to campus. Some of us travel even up to 2 hours back and forth. And so while this plan kind of addresses emissions on campus, what first steps, how are you planning to take for students who kind of basically emit carbon emissions, like on the way to school, on the way back home? Yeah.
I think she should be on our transportation working group.
I was just thinking that. Sign up, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming, Annie. That's all I'll say. We share an office, so we're very well acquainted. She's my little friend. But I think that the important thing that you bring up here is that there are some things that are out of the university's control. It's not like UNLV can lay a light rail all the way down the Charleston corridor or throughout Las Vegas. That's not sort of in our capacity. But what we can do is, again, on the cultural perspective, raise the issue, and hopefully by building off of some of the momentum that we've created here and hopefully will transpire in other universities, we can encourage there to be more action on things regarding transportation issues specifically. Because you are very right, and it's part of that scope 3 category that's very hard to measure because it's all the transportation here, and like you said, we're a very commuter-based campus. But part of the process is sort of defining what goals we can make as a university, and then hopefully posit to a larger audience that has more money in their wallet, so to speak, that can potentially create the solutions that we need that are far above our pay grade, so to speak.
Excellent, thank you. So I do want to invite the folks that are in the Zoom room to stick around. And I also want to invite the folks that are in person to stick around as well. The folks that are on Zoom are going to have a virtual experience that's very similar as the folks in the room. So while the folks in the room will do a gallery walk around boards with different topics on them, asking specific questions, those in Zoom will go through a series of Menti polls to address the same questions. So if you're online, please stick around. I think Musa has an announcement as well, and if you're here, please stick around, and I'll pass it over to Musa to wrap it up.
Thank you. I just wanted to introduce one of the president's bosses who's taken the time to be here with us today. Regent Laura Perkins is here. She represents District 1 and is a member of our Board of Regents and a very, very proud UNLV alumna. So thank you for being with us, ma'am. Yes, amongst the things that she works on that she's very passionate about are things around infrastructure and investments and capital planning, and she's been very, very supportive of us in that regard. Thank you.
And she's wearing red. I also want to invite the panelists to hang out around the boards around the room. Y'all are experts on a lot of these things, so folks might have questions. You can also address the panelists on other questions you might have. We have refreshments outside, so please help yourselves. Thank you so much for coming. It is impressive to see the turnout today. So it really does illustrate how students, faculty, and staff really care about the work that's happening here. So thank you. We're going to stop sharing online, but stick around online if you're there, and stick around in the room. And looking forward to getting your input on the Rebel CAP. Thank you.